Hello and welcome back to the garden.
Hello!
This is Garden Therapy. This week's video is the continuation of our first part of the mind-body connection, which now we're coining internal world-body connection. And we're going to continue our conversation with Marta Pickens. If you remember in the last video,
Explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
we spoke about the philosophy of Mr. Rogers that Marta likes to use. Anything mentionable is manageable. We also spoke about the term psychogenic, which is taking something that's caused by your emotional and internal world and becoming physical, like Marta's toothache. So real pain that's driven by some emotional stimulus. And of course, the phrase internal world. If you've missed any of it, don't worry, I'll pin it right here. And also at the end of the video, I'll put it somewhere over here where you can also take a look. But please check it out.
There doesn't leave much time for dilly-dallying.
In this video, Marta's going to talk about refresh on Mr. Rogers. She'll also talk about some steps we can take and actions we can take at home, outside of the office and off the couch to help us deal and process our emotions in a meaningful way. So I hope you enjoy the video. Julia,
Okay.
how does
Okay.
somebody know when it may be time to walk out of the garden and walk in the office as somebody that can help them? Sell me, Marta.
I would say it goes back to Mr. Rogers.
Anything mentionable is manageable.
When you recognize, you know what, whatever way you get there, this is unmanageable for me, or the cost of this is too high. It's taking from me. And even if it's like, I don't really know why or how, but just that sense of like, this has become unmanageable and it's taking from me, or it's taking from my family, it's taking from my job, it's taking from my kids, it's taking from my sense of like, I want to wake up every day and live my life. If you have a spouse or actually a good friend that has a lot of capacity, you can do a lot of that outside of the office. And I'm going to give you some practical things. But professional guidance is always really, really good. The hopeful thing is this. We have some practices now where you can work through this more quickly than we've been able to do before. Where before it's kind of like years and years on the couch.
What are you saying?
Time she's up. We'll delve into that next week.
But now we have some really powerful interventions that can move the internal world process more quickly.
How do you become more aware of your mind-body connection in your daily life?
This is what I tell my clients,
Yeah.
and this is what I do,
Yeah.
and this is what I tell my kids. This is pretty cool. St. Ignatius, he had something called the examen, which is a practice that some spiritual people use. I've tailored it to the psychological. So all the examen is, which is a great practice, and we do this with our kids at night. At the end of the day, you pause and you go back to the beginning of your day and you watch it like a movie. And you play back the day from beginning to end. That's the practice of the examen in a general way. But from a psychological perspective, if you do that every night and you ask the question, you can just simply, what was happening emotionally for me during my day? Or you could do it specifically if you're working on fear. As I walk through my day, so you watch your day and then you go back and you're like, okay, looking for spots of fear. So you kind of replay it twice. And then you can wonder, all right, what more can I be aware of that was bringing on that fear? What thoughts were there? What were thoughts even now when I look back at that time of my day and I remember feeling anxious? I love that. And it's really helpful. And you can tailor it in all sorts of ways.
So
Yeah.
for lack of a better term, you can tie that exercise looking for the positive or looking for something that was negative.
Exactly.
Something that might have held you back or something that gave you a lot of joy.
Exactly. As a psychologist, I'm looking for something more personal, right? More like it's going to be specific to you, this is going to be specific to me. So the awesome thing about the examen practice is you can tailor it to whatever it is that you feel like you need to work on. It's awesome because there's infinite ways in which it can be applied. Okay, let me start with looking at my day from beginning to end, and then, okay, let me kind of go back. It's a pretty incredible practice.
So if you're doing that practice though, and whatever you're hunting for and
Yeah.
during that practice and
Yeah.
you find those things, well then what? So you go through your day and then what are your next steps for something like that? Like what do I do with it?
One thing you don't even have to be already doing it, which is by going back during your day and looking for those things, the next day, you're going to be automatically primed to then recognize them more in real time. And as you do that, you're going to have access to them in a totally different way. Does that make sense? So one thing you don't even have to do, it's like you're priming your mind.
Yeah, so you don't have to act on it at that moment. You go, okay, just time for bed, go to bed.
Exactly.
And just be aware of what's leading up to it the next day.
Yes. Okay. So then automatically you'll just recognize those times during your day, whatever it is you're working on, and then you'll have more immediate access to them. And that's always really good. But the other thing you can do, say you're working on anger. So this is a separate practice. And I mean it. I mean, like you have to write it out or type it out, journaling. But my prescription is more specific. The issue you're working on is an issue with a coworker. During the session, you're allowing yourself just to gun it wherever your mind goes. Oh, went to my dad. Oh, went to my dad and went to this memory. Oh, my body, my stomach hurts. And then you just keep going, right? You follow it. The type of journaling that I recommend is both specific and not. So specific will be like, okay, I'm going to work on, during the time with my son, I'm going to work on my grief. So I get out my computer. If you open my computer, I have a document that's probably 50 pages long of all my, I got to write about this. Sometimes it can be prescribed. I'm going to write about it every day. But sometimes if I'm like, I can't manage this in this moment, popping up my computer, let myself go. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I, blah, blah, blah. Where's my mind going? Every time when I close that, I'm like, good. Feels better.
And you never go back and read the stuff?
No.
Yeah, you just write it and let it go.
Sometimes I'm actually thinking about, it'd be kind of cool to publish it someday, right? Because it's like, this is the raw, it's prescriptive. I always keep a running document, even when I'm not disturbed by something. Also, when I'm disturbed and I feel an ache in my heart or my mind, I can't focus. I'm like, I think it's about this. I think I'm scared. And I think it's maybe my dad's getting sick. I go wherever my mind goes, feel better. So everybody could have a running document on their computer. Let it go. It's like that free association. You have an entry point. It's a really good practice. So with the examine, say you're working on anger, that's great.
Yeah, it's like an active mindfulness meditation where it's not so much, when people think of mindfulness and meditation, it's like it's just the present, right? I'm just being. I don't know, it seems like it's an active, actively dealing with whatever's in your head at that time.
That's absolutely,
and
I love
you're
that.
present with your feelings.
Yes, it's not to go just blank and silent and peaceful. It's a work, right? Even the examine is work, but there's such relief on the other side. So the examine documents and tailoring the examine to whatever you're kind of working on. There was a study that came out recently that said there was one thing that they identified as very important in contributing to people's well-being and happiness. Take a guess at what it is. I failed.
One thing.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
I have no idea.
I know. I didn't either.
You kind of go, is it family?
I know, that's what I said. Relationship.
But,
it was the idea of progression over time.
Continually improving.
Right. Exactly.
Moving forward.
Right. Yeah. And so, but there's a work in it. You have to establish goals and you work towards them. But even like with the examine or this practice, it's a work to it, but you're moving towards something, and there's going to be this intrinsic benefit to that. The sense of like, I'm thinking about it.
It kind of makes sense because people always say they leave. The reason why most people leave their job is because they don't like the people that they're working with. The thing that I see as well is people feel like they're stuck. That there's maybe too much competition for them to move forward on, or not enough opportunities within that organization to move forward.
That's so interesting.
So it kind of reminds me of that.
Totally.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Right. Yeah. So
I would never have guessed it though. But that's the feelings of accomplishment come from, and improving and feeling good about yourself. So I get it. People like, I did a thing on planning and making checklists, and people love checking the boxes because it's that progression.
See? You had this, you just kind of knew, and now you have this. So now the big box we want to check is that internal world. It's just so important.
I think that could be probably the benefit of working with the therapist and talking to them and saying, hey, that progression of doing it. Maybe people that give up feel like they're not getting those steps. That progression maybe might be the key.
Yep. A lot of what I do, because I think people have a tendency to, and I have this myself too, not recognize the movement that we are making. And so a lot of times in here, when I'm doing the work, we'll kind of pause in time and all reflect back. Let's look at your journey so far. Look at how far you've come, and these are the ways in which I've seen you. It's harder for them sometimes to access that. So anyway, it's a good practice as you're making that work to remind yourself, yeah, I'm moving towards this.
Yeah.
I am doing this. It doesn't
it
feel like a lot, but
it totally makes sense. I mean, to dumb it down to the garden, that's the beauty of a seed, right? Planting a seed, seeing the little leaves come up, and then you see it grow, and then you're making a meal out of all the stuff. And I guess, I mean, that's one of the joys of the garden, is watching that progression keep growing. Yeah, there are definitely like life lessons. I mean, that's the purpose of the channel, is lessons learned in the garden that you can bring out into real life.
Yeah.
Whether it's dealing with change, and that change can be, transitioning from one season to another, that can include death, all those things. But really, it's not that big. But dealing with loss is a part of it, and knowing when to, we always say never give up, don't quit, but know when to quit.
Yeah,
that's
right.
part of it.
Yeah.
And that's definitely one of the life lessons. Know when to pull a plant, but then also when to give up on, or to mourn the plant. I mean, you spent 8 weeks growing these seedlings, you put it out, and then you come out the next day and a rat has eaten all of your stuff or dug it up.
Right.
You deal with that, and do you have the plan in place to move forward with something like that, even though it's totally unexpected.
Yeah. Oh, so good.
You gotta deal with those things.
So good.
Yeah. So no, we do, but sometimes it's not conscious.
Yeah.
You just kind of move forward, and it's easier to go. Yeah, it's just lettuce. You can use some of those tools to. How do you move forward? Like Cheryl's like, how do you dealing with this and not like falling apart? You just lost like 7 bowls of salad, overnight. I said, I know. I said, but I have it over here. I have some seedlings as a backup.
That's good.
And I have a lot of rat traps. So we'll get even.
The royal road to the unconscious is dreams. Freud said that. Dreams are awesome. Dreams give us like a window into what's all underneath, the internal world, right? When my kids were littler, we'd have dream analysis time on the way to school. It was so fun. I'm like, tell me your dreams. And we'd pull up the big themes. Okay, fear, sadness. And then we'd work with it and play with it. But dreams are a wonderful thing. The practice of writing it down and being able to lift from that prominent themes or feelings is a great way to build our connectedness to that big broad term of internal world.
Yeah, so with the mind-body connection, internal world, physical body, with your dreams, are they always internal world, or can they be physical as well? My
main thought on interpretation is, of course, they're not literal. They're going to pull from your daily, what happened today during the day, and then they're going to bring from underneath. So the person in your dream is not always the person. Usually it's sort of like the person in the dream is usually a part of yourself. But anyway, you want to just pull. It's easy to pull the big emotions, the big things. I had a dream about physical pain last night because I have an area in my life that is physically painful. So they're always going to be intersecting.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Huge thank you to Marta Pickens. I greatly appreciate her time in helping me make this video. And if you got anything out of it, please feel free to like, subscribe, and set that alert button. And don't forget to share it with a friend who you think may get something out of it. And again, just as I promised, click over here if you've missed any of our past videos and the other mind body. Thanks again.